Hello everybody, I'm Rachel from Chicory Girl Wellness, and one great way to feed your family more healthily is by preserving your own food. This way you know exactly what's going into it, and it gives you the opportunity to take advantage of all the amazing summer produce. Now, if you've never preserved your own food, it might be a little scary at first, but it also might be easier than you think, and tomato sauce is a great way to start. This is hands down the most delicious and simplest recipe that I've found. So today, I wanted to share it with you. To get started, I like to wash my tomatoes. I simply fill my sink with cold water and a splash of vinegar, fill it with tomatoes, and let them soak for a few minutes. Then I rinse them off and lay them on a towel to dry. If you're worried about residues or possible chemicals on them, you can also add some lemon juice or even a few drops of thieves oil to help break down any chemicals that might be on them. Next, you're ready to cut and roast the tomatoes. I simply core them and then either cut them in quarters or halves, depending on how large the tomato is. I then place them in a single layer on a cookie sheet and continue cutting until I have 2 cookie sheets filled. I like to sprinkle on some seasonings next. I use about 1/4 to 1/2 a teaspoon of black pepper and about 1/2 to 1 teaspoon of Himalayan salt per tray. I also love to add some fresh oregano and basil if it's available in my garden. This is optional, but it adds a wonderful fresh flavor to the tomatoes. I then drizzle on a couple tablespoons of olive oil and they're ready to roast. Tomatoes are actually better for you cooked as it helps make the nutrients in them more available to the body. This is made even better by the addition of olive oil, as some of those nutrients need fat to absorb into our body. I then slide them in the oven and roast them at 350 degrees for about 30 to 45 minutes depending on the size of the tomatoes. They're ready when the skins are wrinkly and the juices are flowing freely. Allow them to cool on the tray, or if you need the trays to continue roasting more tomatoes, you can simply pour them into a heat-proof bowl and set them aside to cool. Once they are cool enough to work with, I pour them into a blender and make sure to include all the yummy juices and blend until they are completely pureed. Then I pour them into a saucepan or a bowl. At this point, I like to season the sauce even more. I typically add about 1/4 cup of dried oregano and 1/4 cup of basil. I also add about 1/2 a teaspoon of pepper and 2 teaspoons of salt. You can add other seasonings you like as well. I sometimes include rosemary or thyme or even minced garlic. Sometimes I add some sugar as well to offset the acidity of the tomatoes, but I'm skipping it this time as we are trying to work away from refined sugars in my family. Once it is seasoned to my liking, I'm ready to store it. I prefer to can it, but you could also freeze this as well. If you've been one to shy away from canning because you don't know how or you're nervous about pressure canners, it may be easier than you think. Also, tomatoes only require a boiling water canner, so they're a great place to start learning. So to start storing the tomato sauce, I take my 7 clean quart jars and make sure to inspect the rims for cracks or chips. I then fill them almost to the top, leaving about 2 inches of headspace. I then wipe the rims and place the new washed lids on top and secure them with rings. It takes about 18 pounds of tomatoes to make 7 quarts of sauce. 7 quarts is 1 canner load, so that's what I like to go by, but you can make larger or smaller batches depending on how you want to preserve it, whether in the freezer or in the canner, or if you just want a single use for one meal. You may notice that the sauce seems a little bit liquidy, and this varies based on the type of tomatoes you use. In the past, I have added some tomato paste to thicken it, and you can do that as well if you like. I use this sauce for pasta or pizza sauce, as well as a base for creamy tomato soup though, so I decided this time to just leave it thin, and then I can add what I need when I use it based on what purpose I'm using it for. I fill the canner with water and place the jars inside. Make sure the temperature of your jars is similar to that of the water in your canner. My first batch of sauce was cold from being in the fridge, so I filled the canner with cold water. Then I wanted to get the next batch in right away, which meant the water was hot from already being boiled, so I warmed the sauce over the stove before pouring it into the jars. If you skip this, your jars could break in the canner from the differences in temperature, and it's not a fun mess to clean up. Place the lid on the canner. If you are using a pressure canner as a boiling water canner, make sure not to seal the lid. Turn it to high, bring it to a full boil, and then set the timer for 40 minutes. Once the timer goes off, your jars are done. Simply turn the burner off, and once the canner has cooled enough for you to handle the lid, open it up and use a jar lifter to remove the jars and place them in a low traffic area on a towel to cool. Allow them to sit for 24 hours before marking and storing. The flavor of this sauce cannot be beat, and I hope that you and your family enjoy it. So now you know how to turn fresh tomatoes into tomato sauce, and a great way to preserve them so you have a shelf of it all winter long. This is easily the most versatile and delicious tomato sauce that my family and I have had, and I hope that you and your family enjoy it too. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe to keep up to date on all our videos, and thank you again for watching.